to start off with, tell us about yourself, whatever you're comfortable to share.
My name's Lynn, and I grew up in Wisconsin. So my dad was a professor, my mom worked in an insurance agency, and just coming all the way through school, I would say I never had confidence. I didn't have any confidence. So what happened for me is I became an overachiever. So I was the class valedictorian, the class president, the prom queen. I did it all.
Oh.
So, and it was never enough. It was never enough. So I tried to fill my bucket with achievement. And I didn't like to share anything in front of more than two people. I wouldn't talk.
All right,
So
yeah.
it affected my career. You know, I was over time, I got passed over for promotions and opportunities. And I remember there was one opportunity where I was working for a tech company, and they basically, when they had a sales call, they would send out an engineer and a salesperson. And they and here was me. I was, you know, in the office kind of working on other stuff. And everybody, there was like literally nobody left. And there was a big sales call. And they were like, you know, Lynn. So I go to the sales meeting. I was petrified. I just didn't even know. And there's this, it was huge. It was like 30 people. It was a school district, and they were contemplating the product. And so the guy that's the sales guy was like the sales guy, right?
Yeah.
So he gets up in front of the room, and he's standing like this. And every time they asked a question, Lynn, he bypassed every question. And I was like, he didn't know how to answer any questions. So I'm sitting there answering every question, even though he was the guy. And, you know, he was getting the credit for, you know, the whole thing. And I'm like, but you don't know anything. And that did it for me. That was my pivot point. I thought, you know, I know more than, you know, I'm the one that knows. So in that moment, I found my confidence.
I was just wondering, and again, it can or doesn't have to include that that episode of the sales call or sales meeting that you've described, but when did you feel, was it at that moment, or was it later even, where you felt that generally, consistently, that's how you went through life?
Oh, it didn't even happen. It didn't happen in that moment. It didn't happen afterward. After that, I was more fueled by like, oh yeah, I'm doing this, right? So it was, confidence, it doesn't mean that you're never scared, and it doesn't mean that you never prepare. Confidence is showing up in your full presence and feeling like you belong there, right? So it probably took another 20 years to really embody it. I mean, you know, but you figure, you know, the first 20 were, you know, having it kind of taken away and being deconditioned or whatever, or conditioned out of it. And then that moment happened, and then, you know, you kind of work through all the other stuff that comes with it. It's like, oh, I have to see that I'm confident in this situation, or with this kind of thing, or in this kind of conversation, or whatever. And it's claiming your personal power. I describe it as claiming your crown. You're claiming your crown. So that you show up, and it just, when you're in full presence, people can't help but, you know, be magnetized to that kind of strength, that inner fortitude, the clarity, you know, confident people, they're very attractive, right? So now it doesn't mean that a person who doesn't have confidence isn't attractive, but sometimes that person is using other things to make up for it.
But like, in terms of your own confidence building journey, you've mentioned that, so 20 years was sort of conditioned out of you, 20 years it took sort of at least, or in and around, to build it, and to kind of have it as a day-to-day companion, as sort of second nature. Do you think there would have been anything that could have helped you build it faster?
For me, energy attracts energy. So like attracts like, right? So when you're not a confident person, look around at your social circle. For me, I had a lot of people who were either not confident or who were overly confident. So they were, you know, would take advantage. They would, and I became an overgiver. That was something that happened because, I was trying to earn my way into, being confident. So it's really pretty fascinating. For me, if I had changed my social circle and had been able to receive the positive from healthy people, that would have made all the difference. I had a lot of dysfunction and users, takers, predators, and I'm not talking just, people say, ooh, sexual predators. It's like it's that, but there's other kinds of predators too, right? And
emotional predators is pretty
yes,
common, right?
Yes, dysfunctional people who just, I had bosses who were just awful. Just, and so it's by having those kinds of experiences that it's like, oh wait, this is not what I want for my life, and this is not who I am, and I get to have more. I get to ask for more. I get to expect more. So, when you come to that realization, everything changes. So, when you realize you're in these relationships that are not reciprocal, that's probably a big key for, I would say, for me, was having reciprocal relationships.
Just quickly whizzing back to sort of your upbringing, and again, only what you're comfortable sharing, but what do you feel are sort of key contributors to you being sort of an overachiever? What do you feel made you adopt that kind of mask?
Because that's where I got validation, right? So when I would get all A's, then, I would be rewarded or, be recognized. I'd be visible because, I would rise above if I did more, if I gave more, if I studied harder, if I got better grades, if I was nicest person. So then I became, at one point I was a doormat because I was competent, I was kind, I was smart, I knew how to solve problems. And so people would mistake that for weakness. And they would want to use that. And so, as a kid, I just remember and it's funny too, because now I talk to some of my former student mates, I guess, whatever, but they and they tell me, they were like, oh yeah, you were always the smartest. I always wanted to be like you. And I was like, what? What? So my perception of my experience was completely different. I was trying so hard, and it became to the point where people didn't know how they could hang with me because I was so good. And I was like, are you serious? Like, what? It was, so, that's another, maybe a little tip, is to stop and learn how others see you. So, and I, because I didn't have confidence, I would hang out with the people who also didn't have confidence, right? Who would just validate that I needed to do more.
But in terms of personal light bulb moments, the sales call being one, and were there other sort of light bulb moments that you made you realize, or made you make shifts in your life that you realize, oh, and maybe immediately or at some point thereafter you actually acted on that, but something that you realized that you needed to change?
I think that happens over and over and over again. I call it your when I'm working with clients, I call it your 3 o'clock, right? So it's like if we're on a I don't know, a 3D clock, and we're kind of walking around the clock, you're always going to hit 3 o'clock as you do that. Well, your 3 o'clock could be that issue. Oh, I feel ugly. You know what I mean? But every time you hit that, you're different. It's not the same because you're different. You have different resources and different skills and different abilities and insight at that point. So I call it you're always going to hit it. It's not like you magically go, oh yeah, I'm 100% confident in every situation all the time. It's because that's not life. Life is designed to help you learn. It's why you're here. But if you can trust yourself and your ability to adapt, that makes the big difference.
Dick, if you told me sort of how you define confidence, what would you think how would you crystallize that difference between non-confident or unconfident and confident, Lynn? What difference does it make to your life?
Oh, it's everything. It's allowed me to make decisions that maybe other people would judge or, project their stuff onto. I can take risks more easily. I show up more fully in my work. I now, give myself enough credit to be able to bring all of myself to every situation.
Yeah.
So yeah, it made a big, I have better friends. I have friends who, amazing people that are my friends. So I've been really blessed and much more fortunate as I've, shown up more fully. Life shows up more fully for me.
Is there any other sort of advice that you would give for, like, particularly for somebody who's just getting started?
A lack of confidence doesn't always show up as a lack of confidence. Like, you don't always know that that's what it is, right?
Yeah.
So it might be that you're not getting the results you want. You might be, so sometimes it can be very subtle. And so because of that, you wouldn't have awareness that, oh, that's the silver thread. I don't have confidence.